Les gars, nouvelle vidéo, cette fois sur honkaistarrail, Genshin Impact, on va voir. Bon, il a nommé ça, Genshin Impact a changé à jamais les gatchas modernes. Donc on va voir, qu'est-ce que c'est que cette vidéo les gars, pure réaction, on va voir ce qu'il a à dire, ça semble très intéressant, j'ai eu des retours sur cette vidéo, donc on va se regarder ça, je suis un peu dans le flou les gars, on est parti tout de suite.
Time for a gacha game, then the slow eventual lead up to its launch. This is the time when most
Ok.
attention is on them, when every ounce of coverage is being consumed by TikTok-built zoomers and middle-aged weebs. We have seen this happen to Zenless Zone Zero, the upcoming gacha game developed by our Lord and Savior, Hoyoverse.
Ah ouais les gars, Zenless Zone Zero, je suis hype mais pas trop, j'attends vraiment de voir. Je sais pas votre avis sur le jeu mais... Mitigé.
Carried out their second closed beta test, ZZZ has undergone much criticism,
Ouais,
due to some
c'est vrai que c'est
censorship
vraiment
or
fait
questionable design choices, among some
ouais,
other
les télés là,
technical
télé
issues.
bizarre.
Deep inside, we know that ZZZ will not fail. This is a post-Genshin Hoyoverse title after all, but there is genuine concern for the state of the game, leading to this critical backlash following the CBT, which is not to say that people hate the game. They simply
Ouais,
just
si
want
on a
it to
des
be
doutes.
better.
C'est ça, on aimerait qu'il soit mieux, Zenless Zone Zero. Du coup, on a des petits problèmes avec les télés, avec tout ça là. Mais je sais pas, on garde espoir parce qu'on sait que c'est un jeu qualité MiYoYo et on sait que les jeux sont quali normalement. Mais c'est parce qu'on veut qu'il soit meilleur, c'est pas pour le critiquer.
Denying that the mixed reception to the game has some players concerned. At least Snake is working out for them.
Ouais,
Well,
le
most
Snake,
of the
ça marche bien.
time. But without the safety net that is a brand such as Hoyoverse or Yostar, other gacha games tend to have it worse. There is no Arknight's fandom to be funneled into the Enfield pipeline. They are instead independent titles that can only capture a fraction of what other gachas can. But there have been some exceptions. Look at Reverse 1999 for example. This game comes from the studio Bluepock, an independent team that both developed and published the game with no other credit to their name. Yet despite being something of a smaller title, Reverse found itself in the limelight, becoming one of the more prevalent talking pieces of this year, at least in terms of gacha games. And that is due to multiple factors, from its unique concept to its stellar presentation, among others to which I shall cover later.
Je connais pas
but
du tout les
before
gars
that,
ce jeu, j'avoue, j'ai
I want
jamais
to bring
joué.
up another gacha game that also found major success. And this title may or may not come to you as a surprise. Genshin Impact is probably the largest gacha game released to this day.
Bon, Genshin Impact les gars, on critique ça beaucoup, mais je crache pas non plus dans la soupe les gars, j'ai kiffé Genshin Impact hein, quand c'est sorti, vraiment ce jeu c'était une révélation, hein. J'ai kiffé. Là maintenant, honkaistarrail pour moi fait tout en mieux, du coup je préfère honkaistarrail, mais Genshin quand même ça reste un banger.
Hey, both in its overwhelming success as well as its dire risk. To those who may not know, Genshin was one of the largest risks any video game company has ever taken, with development and marketing costs that reached numbers of up to 100 million US dollars. And prior to the game's development, the only major hit that MiHoYo had at the time was Honkai Impact 3rd, which yes, is still quite popular in the grand scheme of things. But in comparison to what Genshin had become, Honkai is practically just another gacha game to the wayside. No offense to those who enjoy Honkai, by the way, but now Hoyo...
Non, c'est vrai. Genshin, c'est leur vrai jeu qui les a fait... Enfin voilà, c'est le gros jeu.
Hoyoverse has become a juggernaut in the gacha game sphere, with multiple titles that are bound to be successful due to the power of their brand, to which I have nothing else to add. I think the success speaks for itself. The reason why I want to mention these games is to show that, no matter your history, whether you were an up and rising powerhouse of a company, or even just another independent studio trying to break into the scene, any gacha game is capable of reaching the heights of other big hitters, so long as they manage to play their cards right. And that is what I want to cover in this video. What does a gacha game need to succeed in the modern market, and how does the lasting impact of Genshin affect that market? To make sure this...
En vrai, je crois que Genshin a mis les gens sur la route, que l'univers open world animé, c'était ça qu'il fallait faire. Et maintenant, en vrai, je pense que les gens sont plus sensibles à un peu plus de contenu quand même. Et surtout d'être écoutés par les développeurs. Il faut juste qu'ils écoutent la commu et donnent des améliorations de plus en plus. Je pense que c'est ça qu'on kiffe. Par exemple, c'est ça sur Honkai là qui a transformé le jeu.
Video is as objective as it can be. I am not going to cover factors like gameplay or graphics, because those tend to be very subjective to personal taste.
Ouais,
no,
ça
not
dépend des
everyone
goûts,
likes the grounded art style of Arknights, and no, not everyone likes the elemental reaction gameplay of Genshin. I am going to talk about what I think to be some factors that every gacha game needs in order to succeed, or at the very least needs to hit the ground running. And I will be mentioning other gacha games to provide further examples. But that is all for introductions. Let us now talk about how Genshin Impact has changed modern gacha games.
Alors, comment Genshin a changé les gachas modernes? Je sais pas, hein, l'exploration.
Remember when I said I wasn't going to cover factors like gameplay or graphics because those are very subjective? Well, you remembered wrong. Modern gacha games need good narratives, good story,
Ouais,
good lore,
c'est
good
vrai.
world building.
C'est vrai, l'univers est très important, hein. Si vous avez une bonne histoire avec des bons personnages qui sont attachants et tout, ça fait tout le taf, hein. Et c'est ce que je kiffe moi sur honkaistarrail et sur Genshin.
One or any combination of these are important for a gacha game success. There was a time when I would have been laughed at for saying narrative is important in a gacha game, because there is a reason why gacha gamers are so infamous for mashing that skip button. Until there was no skip button. And then everything changed. This is post-Genshin times we were talking about. Genshin Impact. A game so renowned that some people only play the game when there is new story content to do. And this expectation is sort of carried on into other gacha games as well. Because what people tend to forget is that gacha games fall under the growing umbrella of live service video games. In other words, video games that are designed to ship content over time, rather than shipping one content complete package. The point of live service games is player retention. To make sure that players are either always playing the game or always coming back. And this is done through things such as dailies, weeklies, limited time events.
Ah mais ouais, ça c'est trop important les gars. C'est ça le problème avec les autres jeux. Il faut tout le temps un jeu qui se renouvelle, qui fournit du contenu, et les gachas c'est bien pour ça. Ils peuvent nous ramener et tout, nous dire de jouer souvent. Et ça, bah, c'est bien pour eux et c'est bien pour nous.
Limited time rewards, so on and so forth. This is how all gacha games operate. Drip feeding content to ensure that you will feel the need to come back. Or, you know, you can always fork up hundreds of thousands of dollars for some pretty pixels. Either way, you are doing exactly what these games want you to do. But after Genshin and the many new gacha gamers that had spawned as a result, now narrative has become a real reason to come back to a gacha game, because due to the nature of live service games, rather than having to write one story from beginning to end.
Ouais, l'histoire est trop importante, hein. C'est pour ça qu'on revient, hein. Moi je suis très curieux de voir ce qui va se passer à Natlan, hein. Même si je critique Genshin, j'ai envie de revoir, hein. Enfin, pour l'histoire, c'est sûr que je vais jouer au jeu. Et ça, c'est une force.
Now you can write one story that is forever evolving over time, in addition to other stories that can be written along the way, further building on what story had come before. And so long as the players are happy with each new story, then there is enough reason for them to come back every so often. And that is not even mentioning other factors, like limited time events and rewards. Of course, that is not to say that there haven't been gacha games with good narratives. I mean, Fate Grand Order comes to mind. But narrative on its own has never really been the big selling point that Genshin has made it out to be. Only after Genshin did the wider market realize that gacha games can also have good stories. But how would this play out for a newer gacha game? Why should the narrative be prioritized above most everything else? Truth be told, new gacha games need some sort of hook in order to reel in players. A game can have good gameplay and good graphics, but those things tend to be the more stagnant elements of the game and can easily wear down over time, especially for a gacha game, where a majority of your time is spent doing the same thing over and over again. But a narrative, on the other hand, is forever developing. Imagine playing a gacha game on release, and you find yourself falling in love with the characters, the story, the world. And you play this knowing that this is not the end. Your journey does not end once you finish the story on release. Your journey only ends once the game decides to end. That promise of being able to continue seeing the story and world you love is what keeps you playing. And in order to achieve that promise, new gacha games need to land that first impression. New gacha games need that one story beat, that one cliffhanger to really make the player say, yeah, I want to see more. Because while good gameplay and good graphics can do some of the legwork, a good narrative is ever more lasting. Assuming that the developers actually make the effort to do so, of course. But I'll leave that conversation for later. Right now, we're instead going to head straight into the next point of discussion. Okay, time for the obligatory Wuthering Waves section. Modern gacha games need good marketing. In the grand medium of entertainment, marketing is just as important of an asset as the production behind a piece of media. Look to the film industry, for example, where marketing expenses can either match the cost of production or even surpass it depending on the scale of the project. Marketing is vital in making sure a property is successful, because without anyone knowing what that property is, then it may as well not exist. Once again, the film industry. So for the very niche market that is gacha games, Companies will have to do their all to get their game out there, especially so if they have no brand power behind their name. Though that is not to say a brand alone will guarantee a game's success. I think the best way to understand the importance of marketing is to look at our very own Genshin Impact, taking us back to the year of 2019, when Genshin was first revealed at E3. Sort of sad I have to explain this, but E3 used to be one of the biggest events in all of the gaming industry, where companies like Nintendo, Sony, and Xbox among others would hold conferences that would bring together gamers across the whole world to witness their favorite video game characters not get into Super Smash Bros. That should give you an idea of how much money MiHoYo had put into Genshin's marketing. For this random anime gacha game to be on the same stage as gaming's most beloved players, such as Shigeru Miyamoto or Bobby Kotick. Now, not all that came from this reveal was positive. Ever since its first trailer, Genshin has always been accused of being an anime clone of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild.
Ouais, ça par contre je suis pas d'accord, rien à voir. En vrai, rien à voir, c'est pas du tout le même type de jeu.
The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom was also first revealed. There is no denying that many of Genshin's features were directly inspired by those found in Breath of the Wild, but there was one difference that really separated Genshin from the game. Genshin is still not on the Nintendo Switch.
Ouais,
3 years, Horrorverse.
Ça fait 3
3
ans.
years.
Ils ont oublié,
But as some people say,
c'est comme le
that
contenu de game.
publicity is still publicity. And so Genshin had actually boasted its popularity due to word of mouth. The tagline of Breath of the Waifu had spread like wildfire. Give the game another year of marketing and some COVID-19 to boot, and now Genshin Impact has become a monolith in the video game industry. And that does not end there. Live streams, character demos, YouTube ads.
Ça les gars, c'est trop bien, hein. Les trailers, les lives et tout, ça maintient le jeu, ça maintient une hype, c'est trop important.
Sponsorships,
ça fait parler du
collaborations,
jeu.
reaction content. No matter where you look, whether you are a fan of Genshin or not, you will always see this game, which really shows just how effective marketing can be. And not just Genshin either. Again, look at Reverse 1999 for example. Because the game marketed itself very well. You saw YouTube ads, sponsored streams, even appearances at gaming events like Tokyo Game Show. If not for its marketing, I'm not sure Reverse would have found the same success. Even Tower of Fantasy exploded when it first launched, sponsoring every creator on every platform and purchasing ad spots during live events, on top of riding the Genshin killer wave. Now, I have been talking a lot about how good marketing can benefit a gacha game, but I also need to talk about the consequences of bad marketing. And what better example do we have than punishing Grey Raven? Oh, Curl Games, you naughty, naughty boy. Actually, I can't even call you naughty because you've barely done anything at all. Punishing Grey Raven has a reputation of being one of the better action gacha games on the market. That is due to its unique combat systems, as well as its spectacular encounters. And really, when people see this game as the major competitor to titles like Honkai Impact 3rd and Zenless Zone Zero, then you know that PGR at least brings something to the table. But despite how much good there is in the game, PGR has two major flaws. First, the new player experience isn't the most friendly. Even though the game has made some improvements, many of its systems are still very foreign. From the unique combat to the visual novel-like storytelling, the game tends to filter out many new players. And the second major flaw that comes hand in hand with the new player experience is the game's poor marketing. There is literally an inside joke that we the players had to market this game ourselves, because Kuro Games unfortunately fumbles in that department. Hey y'all, I'm doing my job. Have they gotten better? Well, apparently people are finally getting YouTube ads for PGR, and Kuro even advertised their game on the billboards of Times Square. So sure, but that is not enough. Just this year alone, Punishing Grey Raven has received a slew of updates, such as English VA for all characters, massive improvements to the new player experience, new Gen 2 characters that have transformative gameplay, and an official PC client. Pretty exciting, right? Well, let me ask you this. As someone within the gacha gaming circle, have you heard of any of these updates? If you have played PGR, then maybe.
Pas du tout.
But beyond that, probably not. Because Kuro once again did not market these updates all too much. Look, I don't want to turn this into a Kuro Games roasting session, because 1, I actually love their games, or game as of now, and 2, I'm sure they already catch enough hands as it is, but this should serve as a lesson for them, especially with the upcoming release of Wuthering Waves. Regardless of whether or not the game turns out to be good, without proper marketing, Wuthering will never even have the chance to prove its worth. So far, the game does seem to be taking the right
c'est vrai, c'est
steps,
important.
appearing at several gaming events, as well as releasing the occasional character demo, hopefully leading up to the eventual announcement of another closed beta test. But once the countdown starts for Wuthering's
ce jeu, il
actual
fait peur, les
release,
gars.
then
Ce
Kuro
jeu, je
needs
pense,
to
pour
pull out
Yoverse,
all
il fait peur.
stops. In order
C'est
to
lui qui a le plus gros
guarantee a
potentiel.
successful launch, spam those YouTube ads, sponsor every creator on every platform, sell out to any opportunity you can. Do whatever it takes in order to get your game out there.
Wave.
And this
Oh,
goes
les
for
gars,
every
ce
single
jeu,
gacha game. Your Breakers, your
il peut vraiment être
Enfield, your
bien.
Project
Faudra
Mugen,
voir.
anything goes. Because in this post-Genshin era, you need to market your gacha game, or else consumers will become complacent with the games they already play. Word of mouth is not enough. You have to give the people a reason to play your game. And
C'est
while
ça.
we are talking about a reason to play, modern gacha games need good support, encapsulating everything we
c'est
have
trop
talked about in this
important. C'est le plus important. S'ils nous écoutent pas, s'ils font rien, c'est nul.
video.
Voilà.
Post-launch support is needed
Ah, yeah.
for a gacha game to prosper. While onboarding new players is important,
Ah, ce jeu, par contre, il a pas l'air
retaining
ouf,
those
là.
players is just as, if not even more vital to a game's success. And this can be accomplished in many ways, not just including good narrative and good marketing. Striving to bring more to the players is of utmost importance, because complacency is the death of live service games. Without even trying to bring meaningful updates, players are more than likely to fall off. Think of Genshin and its number of updates. To compare the base version to now, there have been many additions to Genshin that rendered the game forward
Mais
into its
ouais,
initial
c'est
2020
ça.
release. Not just in
C'est
actual
ça.
content drops,
C'est le problème
but
de
also
Genshin.
system changes, quality of life changes, and meta changes. Are these changes groundbreaking? No, at least not all of them. But they are enough to retain the game's players throughout these
c'est
last
ça,
3
hein.
years.
On demande
Like
que
to
ça.
think that Noelle mains are finally eating after years of Geo downplaying and Ito propaganda, and all it took was for Genshin to release its first ever character with an actual personality. But on the other hand, Genshin's patch cycle also has its flaws. Upon the release of a new region, excitement for the game is at an all-time high, only to then decelerate with each passing version, until the cycle continues once more. Like compare the latter half of Sumeria with the launch of Fontaine, and there is a stark difference. Regardless of said flaws, Genshin is still net positive when it comes to player numbers, so rather than fixing something that is not broken, Hoyoverse instead brought this model over to their newer game, honkaistarrail, and most likely Zenless Zone Zero. Now I could explain why this model does or does not work with Starrail, but I will instead recommend you watch my last video, where I uncover why an open world would not work for the game. Because one, the points I talked about in that video sort of elaborates
C'est
further
mieux en
on what I've
petit.
said here.
L'open world d'Honkaistarrail est vraiment plus digeste. Hein. Moi, je préfère limite explorer sur Honkai.
Here. And two, I need more engagement, but for other gacha games to adopt a similar support model is not outside the realm of possibility. In fact, it is very likely. I mean, most have already adopted the 50-50 pity system, so why stop
Ça, c'est
there?
pas mal, ouais.
And for some games, it works. Others, not so much. But that further proves just how much of an impact Genshin has on the market. For so many games to be using systems spawned by the corporate minds at Hoyoverse, modern gacha games have changed for better or for worse. Companies have to adapt in order to keep up with the new market. No more releasing random mobile games in order to cash in on a quick check. Now you have to sustain a product in order to reap the rewards, because gacha games are already such a volatile market, where some manage to find an audience, while others simmer off without even a single trace. Not only do the players lose out on a game they enjoy, but the people behind the game also lose out on a project they either loved or relied on to get by. In any year full of layoffs throughout all of the gaming industry, I think no one would want that for anybody. So please, make good games. That is all that we ask for.
C'est vrai. C'est vrai. C'est le mot de la fin. C'est clairement le mot de la fin. Pas fini.
Speaking of layoffs, did y'all see the awards of games 2023? To think that our Genshin Impact got stood up by this little game known as Baldur's Gate 3. I mean, who has ever even heard of Baldur's Gate 3? Not like everyone and their mother was talking all year about this critically acclaimed award-winning video game. Of course not. Not at all. But surely, had Genshin won the award, then maybe Hoyoverse would have given us a free 5-star character. Right?
Oui.
Who am I kidding? Genshin could never.
Oui, Genshin could never, les gars. Genshin could never. Ils le feront jamais, frérot. Ils pourraient donner une Ayaka, ça changerait rien. Mais ils le feront jamais, malheureusement. Et c'est le problème du jeu. Et à un moment, ça le fera descendre. Je pense. Bon, les gars, En vrai, bonne vidéo, on a appris des choses. honkaistarrail, en vrai, voilà, c'est le support qu'ils font sur le jeu qui le rend bien. Et je pense que même s'ils ont un gameplay normalement moins dynamique, vu que c'est du tour par tour, et même s'ils ont un open world beaucoup moins vaste, et ben le jeu a un potentiel peut-être plus élevé. Voyons, on verra comment ça va évoluer. Après, peut-être ils vont changer sur Genshin, ce sera incroyable. Mais par contre, on va pas cracher dans la soupe. Genshin a tout changé pour les jeux Gatchas, c'est sûr. Il a tout lancé. Et il est encore victime de son succès en fait. Parce que sans changement, il fait les mêmes revenus. Donc on se met à la place de Yoverse. Pourquoi changer une stratégie qui marche? Ça, c'est vrai. Je dis ça, je dis rien, ça, c'est vrai. Allez les gars, sur ce, on se retrouve demain pour une nouvelle vidéo sur honkaistarrail. Peace!